Welcome back. We're here in Tabletop Simulator, but in Arena the Contest mod. And if you've been watching my previous video, you probably saw our spotlight on the Brute class, which was pretty well received by a lot of people. So figure we continue and go over the Tactician class, which we'll be getting into more details on here in a second, but I think the Tacticians can be probably either one of the hardest or the hardest classes to play really well. And there will be a variety of reasons why I think that here in the here. So I do have a little special thing to show, and Code, who's here in the stream and probably watching on Twitch at the same time, can tell me if it's coming up or not. But ta-da! Do you see it?
There it is. Oh, look at this.
It's real life.
Oh no.
It's this thing that you call like a board game.
Oh man.
So now you guys can actually see some real life components here. And don't just have to do the tabletop simulator, although the tabletop simulator is still extremely helpful, especially when I'm just explaining some of these things, because it's a little easier than just seeing, trying to zoom in on the hero mats and everything and trying to get a good idea of those. But I figured I'd just give a moment here to show off some of the stuff from the first campaign. You got so part of the Tactician class is we got Rokaru here. He is the samurai of the Tacticians. He's very versatile and actually pretty high damage. We'll talk about those later. We got, let's see, there's a little light reflection. We got Garion the rogue. He is our rogue, kind of like a thief, right? You can see in this picture he's holding a gem and everything, and it's really, I'd almost say he's like a swashbuckler type guy, right? Like almost like a you got your like Han Solo type character. All right, we got Mir the assassin. She is definitely very high mobility and pretty decent damage tactician. And then we got Liana the pirate, and she is I did a little bit of looking over her abilities recently, and she's got some really unique type of abilities that you don't see in a lot of the other heroes. So I think it'll be pretty interesting once we get to her, and I think I'll probably do her last. But more importantly, I also wanted to try to show, and you can tell me how it's coming out, Code, some of the first edition miniatures. There's Rokaru. So these are obviously not, the reworked ones, but for people that hadn't really seen the quality of the original models, you can see them here. We got Mir. Obviously mine are not painted like some other very talented people out there on Facebook or BGG and everything. But I don't know, I'll probably paint the new ones once they come out. But when I first saw these, I was like, they're pretty cool, but not really as great as I expected. That is Liana the pirate. And then I did have, I think I showed this in an Instagram photo earlier. We got the Elder Dragon here. Look how freaking big this is, right? Look at this, guys. Look at this comparison. He's tiny. I mean, it's crazy. how little these guys are. I mean, you got a full team of tacticians here, and they're like, yeah, we got nothing on this guy. And then the other thing I wanted to show, we got the dice bag here with the little logo or whatever that they got on there. But I thought I'd show these off real quick. So these are the dice that you could have bought in the add-on package. So the interesting thing about the dice was, and the reason I want to bring it up is more just like trying to show like the character of Dragori more than just, oh hey, look, I got these cool dice. Is so back when the first campaign was going on, um, they started work, on all the components, and the dice was one of the add-on packages. In the pictures that they showed online, they looked kind of closer to these type of dice. So when they showed the pictures from the Kickstarter update of the dice, these were the ones that they showed. And not that they look bad, but when you kind of expect one look and you don't get that kind of look, people were kind of a little disappointed with with the quality of the dice that people were going to receive. And so because of everyone's comments, Dragori talked to the manufacturer and said, "Hey, do you guys have, can you do something that's more of this like translucent type material instead?" And they decided to give everybody both sets of dice. So, I mean, I got, it for all the, and another important thing to note too. So I got them for all the different classes have their own dice. Um, but even more interestingly is you'll notice how like a lot of these colors, right, they fit to the different classes. Well, look, they gave us this brown dice back in the day, which of course, people quickly pretty much figured out, oh, this must be a new class. And of course, yes, that was for the commanders. So anyway, I just wanted to show that real quick. We'll get back here into Tabletop Simulator. So I got a little webcam now for some more interesting shots we got. So tonight we're going over the Tacticians. They got, of course, their own little saying like the Bruce did. The best strike is not the strongest, it's the one that hits the right spot. Still ridiculous, but anyway, I'm gonna go in the order that I want to go first. So I'm gonna start with Rokaru. I think he might be my favorite of the Tacticians. So it says he's a tactician who's capable of strategically moving the enemy. He can maximize the versatility of his passive power while negating those of his enemies. Ideal in strategies that take advantage of position. So he's got pretty high offense, medium defense, high mobility, relatively pretty low effects, and a higher level of handling, which if you guys might have remembered from last time, handling essentially is trying to be a subjective way of saying how easy it is to play this character. So higher handling means easier to play. So he's relatively pretty easy, but not the easiest. No Qatar. All right, so we'll look at his hero pad here. Um, So talk about the tacticians in general. They start with 60 hit points, 7 basic attacks, 7 defense, 6 movement, and their passive is tactics. The trigger is hitting a target that is adjacent to at least one of your allies on the first hit of your turn, and the effect takes 4 damage. So with the hit points, it's a little bit lower than brutes, as you guys might remember from last time. Slightly lower attack, but higher defense by 1, and they also have the same movement as the brutes. So 6 movement is pretty good. So that's a lot of ability to get around the battlefield. All right, so looking at specifically Rokaru's abilities, we have Tide of Blades, which is a single target, single enemy, 11 damage. His effect is you may move the target up to 2 squares, then all targets now adjacent to the target take 3 damage each. Um, so that's actually, pretty strong. For one thing, we're talking about an ability where you can move another character. Are, in my opinion, a little bit on the higher end of strength in comparison to some of the heroes. Being able to move enemies is really strong for positioning, or being able to get yourself out of a jam, basically, or throwing enemies into lava spikes, whatever it is. So it's pretty good. But what's even better about this is not only can he move him, but then he throws him into an area. Maybe you put him by his other friends, and now they're all going to take damage for being adjacent to him. So it's 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 one of those. What's great about this ability is, let's say you're not even near it. You don't have lava. You don't have spikes, but you have other enemies that you're fighting. You can throw him into his friends there and do, even two guys, right? You'll do 6 damage total, which is stronger than even throwing this one enemy in the lava. Obviously, it's split between 3 on each, but that's still pretty good, at least if you can do two guys. 11 damage. That's I would say pretty equivalent to his offense, where it's all right. It's not really super high damage or anything, but that's kind of what we're expecting with the tacticians. They are more for supporting, getting into the battlefield, moving people around, helping their team to get into better positions, or themselves into better positions to do maximum damage. You guys may remember some of the stuff from last week. I'll just quickly give an example. We talked a lot about the Minotaur. The Minotaur is very dependent on being in, making good positions. For example, like trample, right? We talked about if you could get at least 3 people on a line, you can do a ton of damage. Well, you get a tactician in there, and they can help set them up. So, all right. So anyway, we got Tide of Blades. That's really good for moving people around, doing some damage. Then we got Ancestral Katana. It's a ranged 2 ability, 1 enemy. Same damage, 11 damage. The target can't use its passive power. So obviously this one is not really a great PvE ability, right? Most of the enemies in the campaign do not have passive powers. I think, now that I think about it, I think, let's see, I think this is just temporary, so it may get removed anyway. I was gonna pull out one of the boss pads. Oh no, let's see. Pull out his boss pad, and of course it's probably all the way at the bottom. So at the top, I believe, is supposed to be their passive power, but I don't think that these would affect some of the bosses, because they all have the ability to do refresh, which ends temporary effects. So I don't think it would fit for this, but it's definitely much more focused for PvP, obviously. So maybe for healer, or trying to lower some damage on a brute or a shooter. But I think really what makes this ability at least decent is that range 2. So if you can't get into the fight for whatever reason, or you don't want to get hit, you can go to range 2 and be able to still make your attack. All right, his special attacks, Dragon Spirit, which is an amazing ability. It is a range 2, 1 enemy, 25 damage, so that is a massive hit for a special attack, especially for a class that doesn't essentially their strength isn't just their damage. It's their ability to support their team and manage the battlefield, basically. So his of 25 damage is really strong. But even better is his permanent ability. So you can't use your passive power, which sounds bad at first until you get to the next part. On your first hit of your turn, a combatant within 8 squares of you takes 4 damage or regains 4 hit points. So that is way better than what your tactics ability is, because it doesn't rely on the positioning of your allies, like being adjacent to the target that you're hitting. Basically, you just have to hit somebody, and you can either heal or damage an enemy, which is that's that versatility of being able to do a heal. There's I don't know if there is any other class. I mean, there's other abilities that do it, I guess, but it's just really good. Obviously, it takes away your passive power, so this is your kind of new passive power, but it's still very strong, having that versatility of doing damage or healing somebody. And then you have 10,000 swords, which is also a pretty decent and strong ability. That's attacking 3 enemies. You have a benefit of where you may move up to 5 squares. Meanwhile, you may strike each target twice at any time. So, we kind of talked about these massive movement abilities last time with like Count Blake, for example, and the Minotaur. Um, so Minotaur, I think he got like a movement 8, yeah, on his single direction. But you can do 5 movement, and you can even strike a target up to twice. So in total, right, you can do 6 strikes, which is it's 7 damage, right? So you're not going to be, doing tons of damage on each hit or anything. Maybe you can try to couple that with. Hold on, let me pull out the. Whoa! Did you see that? It like started spitting.
Whoa,
Yeah, right.
spin.
Whoa. Trying to do stuff like making more guys vulnerable, get a little extra damage in, or obviously your passive. Um, that will increase the damage a little bit. But really, what's good about this is the fact that you're able to really spread quite a bit of damage, right? So you can do at least 14 damage on 3 targets. So it's basically like a primary attack, a strong primary attack, especially like maybe like from a brute or I mean even the tacticians obviously, strong attack that can be spread across 3 different people, and you're moving around the battlefield without having to take those additional hits. So it's a very strong special attack, and it's got a lot of different utility, especially we also mentioned about the benefit of being able to move without inciting reaction attacks. So fantastic ability, and he's definitely I think he's my favorite, but we'll go through all the others and I'll have to reassess. So, what do you think about Rokaru there, Code?
He's. I mean, I've only played 2 of the 4 tacticians, but out of the 2, he's my favorite as well. He's really good, especially 10,000 swords.
Which one did you not? Which ones have you not played?
I haven't played Mir, and I have not played the pirate.
Liana.
Hmm.
All right. Yeah, Liana. She's very unique, and after looking at her abilities, I mean, I don't want to ruin stuff, but she's got some crazy stuff. When you think like you read the abilities and you think, oh, that's really not that strong, but then you think and look at what they do, and it's gonna blow your mind when if you especially once you get deeper into this game, you'll realize how strong some of her abilities are. All right, let's move on. We got now. I guess. Oh, real quick. So following up with the what is this thing called again? I forgot already the name of it. The compendium, the hero gameplay compendium. So going along with the compendium, I'd say it's relatively accurate. I don't know if I'd say maybe his defense is quite as high. I'm assuming that they're planning to give most of the tacticians a higher defense just because they have higher defense than brutes. But there's not. He doesn't really have any abilities that necessarily give him defense in any way, except maybe ancestral katana, being able to prevent somebody from using passive power that'll potentially reduce some damage or healing or something. But it's not really defensive in my opinion. So then, of course, mobility, which we talked about quite a bit. Effects, very low, because he doesn't actually have any real effects other than just ones that trigger off of these cards here. So it's when I say that, I mean it's not like a condition, right? It's not exposed, curse, slowed, anything like that. And then his handling, a lot of damage focus, so that's relatively pretty easy to handle. All right, so we'll head on over here to Garion the Rogue. Tactician who can negate enemies' effects and steal their attacks. Deals massive damage when well positioned to flank enemies. Ideal for neutralizing the most important hero of the team. Alright, so if you guys have seen my previous streams, you probably have heard me talk quite a bit about Garion before, right, Code?
Oh yeah.
He comes up pretty often, and the main reason I bring him up often is because Garion is not very good. Well, he's not great for PvE, and at least in terms of, and when I say this, I'm saying this all assuming, right, original core base, Arena of the Contest, not Tenaris Adventures, because we know that they are planning to change how some of the enemies work, so that way some of these heroes can gain some of their, be able to use more of their abilities, and it's not essentially wasted. So with Garion, well, we'll get to all of them in a second. We'll start with Dirty Trick. So it's a range 2. It's good. Benefit of 2 days roll, which is really good. And then 10 damage, so it's a little on the lower side. And the target's attacks deal hit damage but apply no effects. Passive power is not affected. So what this means for people that may not know is, let's say Garion uses this one on Rokaru, for example, and he gets his dirty trick off on Rokaru. Rokaru used Tide of Blades. That means he'll do 11 damage, but he will not be able to do the movement and then do the additional damage to the people that that target is adjacent to. So he can, when you talk about preventing somebody from using an effect on a card, you can really mess up or disable somebody from using attacks. So like for example, um, the dirty tricks, you could essentially do that. Even I believe it would apply for like specials. And so for some people, specials, that's like massive, right? I mean, let's say you put it on Count Blake, he's not going to get his Call of the Master, um, or basically anything. I mean, you could prevent like an interrupt, which is it's kind of crazy to think about. I don't know if we've even explored that too much, Code, but let's say you did Dirty Trick on Sir Eric. Obviously, this is all PvP. You could prevent him from doing his negating the target's attack and then doing his heal, and which obviously is similar to most other guys because it's just gonna do. Well, and the funny thing too is, with Barrier of Light, it doesn't do any damage, so it would be completely pointless to ever use your interrupt if if you had it on you. So you just save it, obviously, right?
Right.
But in my mind, like there is a lot of abilities that are good taking away, their effects. like massive heals. Yeah, like you did that to maybe Talia, right? Not being able to do resurrections or her massive heals. I mean, it's a good way to prevent somebody from trying to, you know, combo or complete a move that they were they were forced to make soon, and you basically stop them. Uh, so it's a good way to force the enemy, and then maybe you can get an execute, you know, from Veneris if somebody's like low or something, or maybe you know just have a brute that can do a massive amount of damage, or a shooter, right. So
Hmm.
it's got massive you know possibilities, but like I said, this is you know kind of thing. You know, and there is some uses in PvE as well. There's plenty of bosses, or not bosses, but enemies that have decent effects. They're not quite as good as the heroes, but you know the hit damage is really where they do the most. So it's not too bad. I think that +2 bonus really makes this a lot better. Um, but anyway, so we'll move on to the next one. So backstab is a single square, one enemy. Ignore all effects applied by your enemies on the target. So what that means is, let's say, I'm trying to think of somebody, maybe like Jade, um, that she puts like hastened. Um, no, not hasten. That's not a good example. Thinking of somebody that maybe does like, is there somebody? Oh, like toughened. Maybe like exalted. No, that's for yourself. Who would be a good? I'm trying to think of somebody that would give another ability to somebody that you can, well, I guess it doesn't have to be a temporary one. It could be a permanent. So let me see here. I think it's Askren, where you can choose an ally, be able to put toughened and blessed on somebody, which is actually a really great example. And yeah, that's probably the best example. So we'll start with that Askren example of ignore all effects applied by your enemies on the target. So it's Askren's target that he put toughened and blessed on, and you ignore that. So obviously you can't ignore the blessed, but the toughened, which would be a -3 damage to your attack. Um, so that's pretty good right there to and this is kind of a common trait of most of the tacticians, that they're able to negate a lot of these different effects and things, and essentially give them a better chance to do more damage, or at least stop the enemy from trying to save somebody pretty much. So then it is 11 damage, and the effect is the target takes +5 damage if it's exposed. So exposed is a -3 to your defense against enemy attacks. So there's a couple ways to be exposed in Arena. So I'm going to pull Garion here, and I'm going to grab, somebody else. Let's see, we got Jade, and then, all right, let's say the Minotaur Merlot is on the back in this example here. So Garion and the Minotaur are on the same team. Currently, Garion and the Minotaur have Jade mobbed. So this is one of the advanced rules in Arena the contest. If you look into it, that when you become mobbed, you are exposed. Basically, it's Jade essentially can't defend herself from two different directions. So she's going to have a penalty to her defense. So for Garion, that's really good, because now he's going to get +5 damage to his attack, which now makes that a 16, And actually, in this case, because you know, and this is going to be pretty common too if you're mobbing, um, that you'll get the tactics as well. So in this case, that would turn into a 20 for that hit, which is yeah, exactly. That's a huge hit for you
For
know,
a
a
primary.
primary attack, especially when you're negating any of their abilities to try to lessen the damage too. All right. I got a sneeze coming on. Oh, there it goes.
Bless
It
you.
was like, wait, I can feel it coming. All right. So, very good for, um, you know, really any situation, but exposed can be harder, especially for melee characters to get in PvP. Not impossible, but still a little harder. In PvE, this was the ability that we discovered when we started playing Garion through the campaign, was he actually can get this off almost all the time because you're in control of all the heroes. So it's very easy to put your other heroes in position to be able to get, you know, 20s over and over and over and over. And so this is one of those reasons where I was saying, you know, I mean, that's obviously, you know, massive hits and it's really good, especially if you're hitting. Um, you know, this is his saving grace in terms of PvE where you can maximize that. But the downside is when you have an ability like that that's so strong, it makes your other abilities, especially when they don't really do much anything else, that kind of useless. So it's almost like never worth it to do dirty trick unless you really need that bonus to your roll to get that attack off. You might as well just try to get the 20 damage every time. And then, all right, so going into special attacks, we got Master Stroke, one enemy, one range, 0 damage, and his effect is removing one special attack from the target. Then you may move yourself up to 3 squares and make that special attack. So this is one of these abilities that's copying somebody's special attack. This is what I mentioned earlier about where Garen is not good for PvE. There is very few bosses or enemies that have special attacks. So a zero hit damage and an effect that essentially doesn't do anything is completely useless. Master Stroke does nothing pretty much in PvE. So it's a little frustrating, especially because people, I don't know about, you know, you, well, Code, you don't have the game yet, right?
Not yet.
Yeah, so when I played the game, you know, sometimes you rely a little heavier on your special attacks to get you through tough situations. And if you have a whole hero that takes up a slot like this, where it's like, oh, he has a special attack that does nothing, it's kind of frustrating. You're like, why did I bring this guy again? And you're like, oh yeah, because I can do backstabs that can do potentially 20 damage each turn, but he just won't really do much of anything besides that. All right. So, and then for PvE, obviously, or I'm sorry, PvP, this is a great ability. Being able to not only just like use somebody's else ability, but you remove it, so they can't even get it. um, so maybe you take like a resurrection ability or a heal ability or a permanent ability. Um, the only other person that's closest is to Elraine, is very similar to Garen, but we'll get to her in another video. All right, we got Memory Thief, so it's a range 2 one enemy, 22 damage, so at least you're getting a good strong hit with that one. And then your effect is to remove one primary attack from the target, and then the permanent is gain a copy of that primary attack. So Memory Thief is you're stealing somebody's memory or ability and using it for yourself. So if you've seen our previous stream, we actually did that, and I think we stole Tides of Blades from Rokaru in that stream,
Uh-huh.
and it was one of those times where the enemy was kind of relying on being able to use that ability at the time, but they couldn't because we had stolen it from them. And I think it was, I don't even remember. Was it that he died, right? It's been a
I
while
for,
since that was. Wasn't it like he died and then
I
he
think
came back
Rokaru,
and he was
yeah,
trying to use that ability because he was being part of it was he like got resurrected and he could use one of his primary attacks and
I think
um
the
yeah.
thing was, yeah, he died, and then before he died, think Garen took Tidal Blades from him. So the question was, when he was revived, does he get Tidal Blades back?
Yeah, and I think the answer was no because it
Right.
was still removed. Garen still had that memory essentially. So very good for PvP. Not super great for PvE. You could remove a primary attack, I guess, and I guess the idea is you'd get that attack, but then they do basic attacks. So I mean, it's not horrible. It's just not super great either for PvE. So looking at his abilities, offense, very high damage. His special memory thief it's pretty good damage. Backstab we talked a lot about, where it's possibility of 20 damage each hit if you do it right, and dirty trick, which can be a little bit more reliable. So I don't know, maybe the offense is a little high, but I don't know if it's that. I'd probably personally drop him another offense because I don't think it's that high. But defense is equivalent to Rokaru's. Mobility is equal to Rokaru's. Um, I don't think I agree with that one. Yeah, they wrote it as exactly the same. I think I really disagree with this one because Dirty Trick does not give us any movement. Backstab does not give us any movement. Master Stroke doesn't give us any. Well, actually, wait, yeah, it does. If you do it for PvP, obviously, you'll get 3 squares, which is okay. Um, but that's it. I mean, I don't know. I think giving him that much mobility is not really accurate to Garen's ability. So I don't know. Maybe I should send suggestions to Alex and be like, hey, maybe you guys, and you guys get spare time, which I'm sure they're like, yeah, we don't even know what spare time is, but see if they could get the compendium revised because that mobility, I don't know if I agree with that. And maybe he has his own reasoning as to why they put it there, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Effects. Um, yeah. There's some effects. Like I said, it's similar to Rokaru where he doesn't really placing conditions, but he is doing some effects to prevent the enemy from doing things. And then handling, pretty equivalent. I I'd almost drop him down maybe 1 or 2 because of his abilities to copy different effects. Especially when we're talking about PvP, being able to look at the battlefield and where that character is and being able to utilize the best way of like taking a special attack is really actually can be really hard to do. So yeah, I think the handling might be a little too high on this. He can be challenging to do, and making sure you're getting in for backs, being able to utilize backstab is can be pretty challenging as well. So anyway, yeah, I don't think I agree with these. So if you're playing Garen, you can let me know if you think if I'm wrong. But I would consider him a more difficult hero than some of the other ones we have in the Tactician lineup. All right, what do you think, Code?
I definitely agree with maybe if Tregori can change um, the stats on that. But I mean, I played Garen. I liked him, but I definitely would not want to bring him into a PvE game.
Yeah,
Definitely PvP only with that one.
and really the thing, like the thing that gets me the most with it and I mentioned it earlier, was it just it he okay, he let's say he just does backstab over and over and he's doing 20 damage. Sure, that's cool as long as you can get in position, but at the same time it's kind of boring, right? You're just doing the same ability over and over and over, and your specials are really not very good to use. So
Yeah, I mean, to me, when you pick a tactician, you want it to be someone that can be versatile in multiple situations. You don't just, if you really just want to deal damage, you would go with a brute.
yeah,
Um, so
that's
that's pretty important to pick a character that, for whatever game or mode you're playing, that's going to work with that mode instead of just using one ability all the time.
yeah. Well, and one of the things I was going to look up too is about Overlord perks, which in our previous streams we've talked about how these are not well shown in it's shown at the beginning of the quest guide, but that's pretty much it. It's otherwise referenced as Overlord perks throughout the game. So you got to come all the way back here to see it. But and I think Dragori, this was one of the items we mentioned, and they are already listening and making, I think, like a reference card or something, right?
Hmm.
And so we'll be able to see this easier. But anyway, so like being immune to mob and focus, which is the case for most bosses or the warlords of that map that you're playing. But then you'll see that there's an ability that says if any power or effect would control them or copy, negate, or remove one of their attacks, they take 12 damage instead. So this is one of these ones that was referenced by Alex actually, of Memory Thief, where you use it on a warlord, for example. You can do 12 additional damage to essentially not do your effect. So you do, uh, 34 damage. Well, actually 38, if you count your tactics, right? So it's a very, very strong special attack, but it's not very exciting either, right? It's good to have balancing where you can, and but sometimes not just damage is always the best way to do it. But that's what the rule is. So I know this is the reason why Alex has said previously, where it's like, oh, Memory Thief can do it, a ton of damage and blah blah blah, and Master Stroke, theoretically is just doing 12 damage, right? But nothing else. So anyway, that's enough of Garen. He is what he is. Um, and he'll probably be a lot stronger in Tenaris Adventures. All right, so we're going to move on to Mir, the Assassin. Tactician who's capable of dealing great damage, devastating effects on a single target. She can also apply ongoing damage, ideal for quickly assassinating the main hero of the opposing team. So, Mir the Assassin. She is got a lot of mobility. So we'll start with Nightshade Poison. One enemy, one square, 10 damage, which is a little bit lower. The target is slowed and weakened and can't regain hit points. So you remember from last week, Count Blake had an ability where you can't regain hit points, and he regained health. Well, Mir has something similar where she's preventing somebody from healing, but they're also slowed and they're also weakened. So weakened is -3 damage when your attack hits an enemy. So that means, let's say Mir makes her attack on. Everyone's just gonna gang up here on Jade. Uh, Mir does her Nightshade Poison, and Jade, is gonna, let's say she's attacking, I don't know, somebody else or Mir or whatever. When she does her attack, she's gonna do less damage. So that really can, especially for damage dealers, really make it a lot harder for them to take somebody down. So shooters or brutes, obviously, would be a easiest suggestion for that. And then, of course, being able to heal. So, you do stuff like putting this on Cedric, for example, right? Where he can't get heals. And we talked about last week about how, you know, he has to get into that perfect area to be able to do damage but not get killed. Well, if you put Nightshade poison on him, he can't get healed from, you know, one of his healers on his team. He's going to be in a lot of trouble. I mean, Jade can singly lock down Cedric, so he can't. I mean, obviously he'll put out some damage, at least pretty. You know, he has really high damage when he's in that range, but it'll be lessening his damage, and he's not getting heals, so it'll be you know, not much longer before Cedric will be out of the battle. All right, and then we got ambush, single attack, single enemy. Your benefit is to move up to 3 squares after striking, but you lose all movement not yet spent this turn. All right, so, and you know, a couple of these have come up before, and I wanted to make one other little intricate mention that sometime isn't, you know, always, I don't know, apparent, I guess. I'll finish out this first, and then we'll talk about it. So it's 11 damage, and the effect is the target is cursed once per turn and can't make special attacks. So this is kind of similar to, um, well, I guess that's not that. There's somebody else that has something like this where you can't do special attacks, but yeah, the cursed, fantastic condition to put on somebody. You know, giving them when they get they have to roll twice and they have to pick the worst of their 2 attacks, which pairs really well with this ability because, for one thing, cursed only applies for primary attacks, which is, you know, those gray border abilities, and you can't use special attacks. So yeah, so you're forced to use one of your primary abilities basically, but you're going to be cursed doing it. So it's really reducing your chance that you're actually going to make your hit. It's pretty good ability. And then her benefit, which is really good for getting her out of bad spots. So, you know, she's got 6 movements, so she can move around quite a bit. Now, one thing that I wanted to talk about is the difference between movement squares and movement points. You'll see this very often in the different cards of people being able to move squares versus movement points. So movement points is the stats on your card, and I don't think there is anybody that gives you movement points. Most of the time people are referring to squares. So there is a reason I'm bringing this up, and that is because in the game there's things like ruins swamps here. Now, in the rules of the game, these slow you down. It's like 2 movement to get through one of these tiles whenever you enter one of these tiles. So if you have this tile here and you're moving onto it, that's 2. You got to move through another one, that's 2 more. And then on your way out, obviously, so you're doing 2, 4, 5 just to go from here to here. But let's say you're Mir the Assassin. Your target, Jade, is over here, and you do ambush. You've already gotten into a position for it, you know, prior to making this attack. So you make the attack, and then it says you may move up to 3 squares after striking. So you get to do 1, 2, 3. So while normally it would cost you 5 movement points to get to here, in this case, Mir is able to walk through all of this because she's moving 3 squares. So it doesn't matter what the movement penalty is. It's the number of squares. So it can be really strong depending on if there's hazardous terrain, basically. So you'll see those a few of these other heroes. If you see me bring it up, maybe I'll bring a mention, but I don't always, just because it's more of an intricate detail. So, all right, going into our specials, we have Shadow Dance, which is probably one of my favorite abilities of hers. I think it is my favorite ability of hers, and that's because you get the benefit to move up to 8 squares before declaring the target, going through barriers, obstacles, and enemies, which basically means she becomes like a shadow and she just moves through whatever she wants to. So let's say you got some walls here, right? And for one hero, they'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or something, and they only get in here. Mir, she's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and she's going wherever she needs to get across the board. And it doesn't matter what it is; she can just walk through it. So we did a previous match where Mir went right through the wall in Lava Citadel and was able to attack the orb on her next strike. But that was something it's really hard to get that orb in Lava Citadel, so we were trying out something kind of interesting there. So great ability, and then 25 damage, so it's a massive hit. Obviously this is a fantastic ability for PvE or PvP. Um, yeah, I mean, I think this is just all around great ability. And obviously, you don't have to already be in position because you get that benefit of being able to make all of that. You do your 6 movement and then your 8 movement. So you're doing 14 movement in a single turn there. So you can get really far across the battlefield with that ability. All right, and then you got River of Blood. One single target, single attack area, 20 damage, so it's a still pretty decent damage hit. Not super crazy, but decent. And then a permanent of the target takes 6 damage at the end of all of its turns. So the idea is obviously you're bleeding somebody out here. So let's see. I guess you can't put this on bosses because basically they'll be able to, or at least like dragons, they'll be able to refresh it. They'll take some damage by refreshing it, but it's good on like warlord characters where they won't be able to remove that. Um, and then of course heroes, right? Unless they have something like some kind of absorption type ability to remove permanent effects. Then they're going to just keep taking damage. So we did have a PvP battle before where somebody had River of Blood on them, and uh, they just kept going because they knew that they were going to die. There was nothing that they could do. Anyway, so yeah, that is Mir. Definitely, high on movement and status effects, and we'll see what her card says. So, offense, relatively pretty accurate, I guess. Defense is slightly lower than the others. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like there's anything particular that is, it's not like there's an ability that's opening up Mirror to, like a drawback type of effect, right? So having her at a lower defense doesn't necessarily make sense. The only thing you could potentially say is the ambush, where it's like if you didn't use all your movement points, then you lose the rest. But ah, I don't think that's enough to really say she's down a whole defense point. Her mobility is, oh man, wow, they gave Rokaru and Garion higher mobility than Mir. I I really disagree with that one. I think Mir has way better mobility than either of those characters. Um, I mean, Rokaru is probably closer, but I mean, definitely not Garen. Garen doesn't have anything, barely anything that moves him or anybody else. So, yeah, this is not accurate. I would say she's at least one higher, if not at max mobility. Very mobile tactician. And her effects is definitely significantly higher, which we did talk about, of like Nightshade Poison and Ambush. And then, of course, River Blood, so very high on effects. Handling is lower. Definitely got to be know when to utilize like Nightshade Poison, for example, or even Ambush and how to get out into a different spot, or when to use River of Blood, or getting across the map when you need to with Shadow Dance. So I, I see the handling, and I think I agree with that one. She's a little more challenging to use effectively. Not that she's hard, but to know the right timing. And I think it fits pretty well with her being an assassin. Assassin should be, making those strikes at the perfect time to really, damage that enemy as much as possible. So, what do you think about Mirror Code?
Definitely, I think the staple, like not the staple, but standard, what you want at a tactician. Um, I definitely think she's the most mobile, and I don't agree with what they gave her in stats, but um, like we saw her do on, Lava Citadel, she could go past the wall, get the orb, so she's very versatile in what she can do.
Yeah.
Having things like River of Blood as well, your opponent or whatever, whoever it's on is bleeding out, so pretty good character in my opinion.
So somebody asked in the uh, chat um, about she has a dodge ability to avoid attacks. I'd say ambush is kind of like that, almost like a dodge. It won't necessarily prevent you from, not taking an attack, but it'll get you out of a position, and maybe you could, you know, let's say we go back to our example here of Jade. Um, Maybe you can use Mirror to go do the attack and then do. Actually, no. Let's say she's standing here. She could make her attack and then get back behind this wall. And obviously, it'd be a little harder for her to try to get over here. So from this side, yeah, it looks like she'd probably still be able to hit her. So I mean, it's not necessarily a complete avoiding, type of ability, but it can be helpful some. So three movement. I mean, dragons have a reaction attack range of 2, so that could get her out of a dragon attack. Okay, so that is Mir the Assassin. I mean, haven't really talked a lot about. Um, I haven't really talked a lot about like character models or like anything like that. I mean, obviously the samurai is pretty cool. I kind of like Mir's whole like pink hair and like the purple like dagger thing, which is kind of cool. I'm sure for people that have painted the model to like accurate color, it's probably pretty fun to paint. All right, so let's move into our last hero of the night. We have Liana the Pirate. Um, so Liana has Black Water Taint. It's a range 2 1 enemy, 11 damage, which is, okay. And the effect is the target is weakened once per turn and immune to new effects from itself or its allies. So this is one of these abilities where I was started reading reading over Liana again, and I was like, dang, that's actually really good. So for one thing, the weakened, where you're doing that person's doing less damage, but really this whole immune to new effects from itself or allies. So it's kind of like um, the Garion one where it's applying no effects. Sort of. It's not quite as good in some ways because it only applies to ones that are on itself or an ally. So it's really more of trying to, let's say you're negating a tank who is going to try to heal an ally, or maybe he's toughening himself, or negating damage, um, or a healer or so. I mean, those ones are probably great examples of Blackwater Taint, where they can really reduce the supportiveness of those classes with that ability. And then of course range too. Always take a range too, because you don't have to get right in the battle to do these abilities. Yeah, yep. The Death Knights are. That is. We'll talk. I think next week. I gotta look at my schedule, but I think we might do tanks next week. I have another announcement to do for the week after that, though, so we'll get that at the end. All right, and then we got Revenge of the Seas, one range, one enemy. Ignore all helpful conditions on the target. So things like protected, hastened, toughened. And then the effect, so 11 damage, and the effect is if you are hit after the attack resolves, you may move yourself one square and make a basic attack up to once per turn. So that's pretty awesome. Uh, I don't know if in any of our previous fights anyone has made significant, crazy plays with this ability, but I know a lot of people have tried. Um, so one, obviously you're making it so like I mentioned earlier, protected or hastened or toughened are not a factor. Well, I guess hastened we won't have to worry about, but protected or toughened. Um, and then uh, being able to make a basic attack if you get attacked is great. I mean, obviously you're only getting one movement, but you essentially free 7 damage. Um, and one thing to note though is because it says so if you are hit after the attack resolves, you may move yourself and make a basic attack. That means it's not your turn. You're doing this attack on an enemy's turn. So, where's Liana here? Pull up Liana. We're going back to our Jade example here, and Jade just loves getting attacked by everybody in my little examples here. Which it really probably isn't a great example because she's ranged. But anyway, we're going to ignore that. So Jade here is standing here and she attacks Liana. And maybe she does a sidestep and these guys are actually back here. She does a sidestep, she attacks Liana. Liana then gets to move right back up onto her again, pinning Jade in so she can't necessarily get away very easily. And now she gets to make that 7 damage basic attack. But since it's technically still Jade's turn, Liana does not trigger tactics. And that is because it's on your turn that you can trigger passives. You cannot trigger your passives when it is an enemy's turn. So just a good thing to keep in mind there when you're playing Liana. All right, and then for her special abilities, we got Tide of Blood. Wow, I almost confused that one. Tide of Blades from Rokaru. Everyone's got a tide, right?
Tide of Staffs is next.
I know, right? Tide of Fists, Tide of, armor. All right, so it's 22 damage. It's a range 2 ability, one enemy. The target's allies that end their turn within 4 squares of it take 8 damage. Okay, so this is probably a good one to pull the card for because some of these do not provide quite enough information to really help you understand how this ability works. So, if you read just, and this is an important point when you personally get the game yourself, is the hero pad is really helpful for references, but sometimes your hero card is better to look at because it'll provide a little more information. So specifically, I'm thinking of this effect where it says the target's allies that end their turn within 4 squares of it take 8 damage. So that's really good, right? Um, So like if Jade here was and the Minotaur were actually on the same team, and maybe Garen decided he was on their team as well, um, they ending their turn, and they don't even have to be adjacent to it. They have to be at least 4 squares. They're ending their turn over here. They're taking 8 damage, so that's a huge amount of damage just for basically it's almost like you're preventing the enemy from being into an area where you don't want them to be because they know that they'll take a lot of damage to do that. So this is a great ability for PvE, PvP. Um, but the important part I wanted to bring up was this. So it doesn't say, you'll see that it doesn't say permanent on it, right? It's not like Mirror's ability where it said permanent 6 damage at the end of its turns. It says here at the very bottom, which is not written on the hero pad, temporary ends at the start of Liana's next turn. So what that means is this is going to happen uh, essentially just for 1 round. So let's say you got a team of Garen, Jade, and the Minotaur, and let's say we got a shooter like Juliet or something. And Juliet's like, just happens to be within 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Um, and they're so Garen goes and he's doing whatever, uh, and he ends his turn. He's gonna take damage because of Jade from Tide of Blood. And then Juliet does her thing. She's going to take that 8 damage. Minotaur is going to do his thing. He takes that 8 damage. But then basically after that should be coming back up to Liana's turn. And then that'll be it. So then these guys can move here. They can end their turns the next time and they won't take damage. So it's great for essentially one movement. If you get somebody, uh, let's say like a corridor or into a corner or something, like you get some guys in some corners, you can do some major damage there. But it can be a little challenging to do well too. All right, then we got Maelstrom, which is actually a ranged attack. So she is the only one that has a ranged attack. All the other guys have either single range or range 2 abilities. Um, and she is the only one that has a ranged attack. It's a one enemy, and you'll actually notice this too if you go back through all the other tacticians. The only person that actually gets close to doing like AOE or multi-target enemies is Rokaru. None of the others do. They're all single target guys. So make sure to keep that in mind. Except for obviously Tide of Blade is a little bit of workaround, but you got to do some good positioning for that one. So Maelstrom, range attack, one enemy, gain a bonus to your roll, which we love bonuses to your rolls, especially for special attacks, because they are not benefited by Blessed. Blessed is only for primary attacks. So you really want to make sure you hit your specials. 24 damage, which is pretty dang good. And then the effect is you may remove a permanent effect from a combatant within range. Range is obviously 8 squares. That's a huge range. And then permanent, a combatant within range is hastened or slowed. So it's a strong attack. Being able to remove a permanent effect is very good for PvP, not great for PvE. Uh, and then being able to place hastened or slowed on an enemy or an ally, it's pretty good. It's not really the best buff in my opinion. It can be helpful for like ranged type heroes to get hastened, um, but it's meh. I could see other conditions that would be better for it, but um, it's a decent ability. I mean, getting that bonus and you're gonna get more reliable hit. So it's all right. I mean, I think Tide of Blood is way better, especially if you can get into a good spot. All right, so let's look at her card. So it's a tactician with great defense and offensive powers, dangerous when left by herself. She can debuff the enemies and prevent them from receiving helpful effects. Ideal in survivor strategies. So yeah, I mean we could definitely see that. I mean Liana can do quite a bit on her own. It's kind of interesting to see that kind of idea because of like Tide of Blood, which she's going to do massive damage to people that are in the bad spots, um, or Revenge of the Seas, where if she's even taking damage, she's still going to be coming back to do more damage to her enemies, and then of course preventing healing. Or effects essentially from other teammates or themselves. So very much a independent type hero. She's it's similar to like Count Blake, where she almost feels a little disconnected from the main class because she's the most unique, but she still is very supportive. She can be very supportive of her team. So I mean, if anything, I think she fits in way better to tacticians than like Count Blake did with brutes. So she's just a different take, I guess, on what you consider supporting. So anyway, Liana is a very unique hero, but with uniqueness like this, getting a lot of different effects and knowing when to use these and having good positioning can make her really, really hard. So handling for her is a 3. I could say you could almost make an argument for 2, maybe even lower. She can be a very challenging hero to play really well. Now, one thing that's good to keep in mind is if you can play tacticians really well, you can do a lot of damage or you can really mess up the opposing team, but you got to play them really well and get in those good spots so that way you can make those plays. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of be going around the battlefield just trying to do damage and tacticians do good damage, but they don't do great damage. So don't always rely on them to be, carrying the team. They're there to help. So handling, you may have missed from earlier in my stream, Crazy Joe, was that it's essentially a subjective. All these stats here are subjective measurements that Dragori made, but handling is specifically trying to tell the audience how easy she is to play. So if it's filled all the way to full, that means she's very easy to play. You could pick her up. You don't really have to fully understand the abilities, but you're going to do really well. Low handling means she's very challenging to play and being able to be in good position. So that's the reason why I mentioned I could argue that her handling should be lower because I think she requires a little more finesse to do really well. So in terms of effects, she does have she's got quite a bit of effects. This one I don't know. It could be about that point or a little bit lower, so that's probably not too bad. Mobility, she's got a little bit of mobility. I mean, I don't know. That might be a little too high because she has one ability that gives her one movement.
Yeah, I think that's too high.
Right? It's like that's it. She got one ability that gives her one movement, but that's it. So
And it's a one-time use ability
yeah.
too.
Defense, she has a higher defense, which is kind of true, and I'd say that mostly from the Revenge of the Seas, as well as Tides of Blood. If your enemy knows that they have Tide of Blood on them, like I mentioned earlier, is you can almost create like a screen where Liana is making her enemy have to move out of position or move out of the way to not try to take that damage. So in some ways, that is pretty accurate of having a higher defense. Um, and then offense, uh, I think that's, all of those attacks are pretty good. So, maybe that's about the right point for her, I'd say. So, anyway, so that is the last of the tacticians for Arena the Contest. Someone did ask in the Brute video if there was going to be more Tacticians or Brutes or any of the others, and I am pretty confident that that is going to be the case. So as you may have remembered from Arena the Contest, or I mean, I'm sorry, Tenaris Adventures, that there was a lot of new heroes that are coming. A bunch of them are crossover characters, which will count as two different classes. Let's say shooter and brute or something, or I don't know, but tank and controller. Or, we don't know all the details yet, but well, actually, I think they did give us one example. What was it, Code? It was like controller and something else.
Uh, trying to. They gave a few out actually. Even the new, or I guess call them original characters, they're going to be dual class as well. So
Yeah. Well, but I don't
the
think all of them are. I think they were planning
yes,
to have some of the heroes just fit into the existing classes.
I think Alex. Don't quote me. I think he confirmed every character in the new expansion is going to be dual class.
All of
Because I
them?
know, I think so. Because I know he said the Elf Sword Mage is a dual class character.
Hmm.
Um, so
I'll
I
have to ask Alex about one because I thought he mentioned that there was going to be additions to the each of the classes, but not that all of them were going to be dual
I think
classes.
the Succubus might be just straight controller though, not
Yeah,
the crossover one, the regular one.
yeah. Huh.
So
All right. I'll have to ask about that one. Let's see. So Joe Crazy. Yes, you're right. Sorry, Joe Crazy, not Crazy Joe. um, Yeah, this game's a lot of fun. Let's see. So you're asking, will this ever be playable in person? Sure, when it gets to your doorstep. um, as you can see here, I actually have the physical game, and I actually got uh, the Tacticians out here right now. So you can see kind of a little bit of what they all look like. They're all trying to battle the Elder Dragon here right now, but all the Tacticians ready to go to town. So yeah, you can play this physically. I mean, I'm sure there's people that have copies that you can buy as well if you want. But there was just the first wave just closed. There's going to be a late pledge, or I'm sorry, second pledge for late pledges that will be opening, and for everyone else that participated in the Kickstarter. So you can get that as well. And so I do have some special announcements, which is actually a good lead in here. So one of those is on October 24th, I believe. So the weekend of, I think it's like 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th is called was it Spiel? God damn it, what is it called? It's the one that the gaming convention that happens in Germany, normally in Essen, but they're doing Spiel Digital, so it's a digital convention, and Dragori is going to be participating in this, and they specifically asked me if I wanted to do a stream um, for for the convention. So on the 24th, which is a Saturday, I will be doing a stream probably, and this is not fully set in stone yet, but I will probably be doing a stream at 9 a.m. Central. I think we're still in daylight savings time at that point, so Central Daylight Savings Time at 9 a.m. So for people that are on the other side of the world, which I know I've had multiple people in Discord or other chats tell me, hey, I can't make those Sunday times. This might be a good time for you to check out the stream if you haven't. And come say hi in the chat too, because I'm always excited to see everyone else be excited for this game as well, because it's a ton of fun and I think everyone can enjoy it. But anyway, so we'll be doing a stream then. We'll be covering a lot of basics of we're probably not, we won't be doing the class spotlights because I have these videos for these, but We'll maybe go through some simple rules, maybe a quick game or some examples, and then also team synergies. I'm going to build some different team compositions, ones that may be good for beginners, and then maybe people that are kind of going into like the advanced level, and different ideas for people to try out. So especially if you're watching my stream and you're thinking, hey, I don't know anything about this game, I can give you, maybe a team comp that you want to try when you do get your game, and maybe you'll have quite a bit of fun with that too. So, all right, so that's the first announcement. And along with that, I guess the other thing I didn't say was Dragori said that they were going to be providing some other information about, I think, like the RPG campaign um, on that day as well, and maybe some other information that we haven't talked about yet.
Uh-oh.
And then, uh
My
oh,
wallet is already hurting.
yeah, right. Uh,
Uh,
Calm down over there, Code.
okay.
And then we got another interesting thing too, is for the people that have somehow still missed this whole campaign and everything that we've been talking about for like the last 6 months, or actually more than that now. It's been since February, so like what, 9 months? Um, Dragori is going to offer Kickstarter prices for that weekend of Spiel Digital. So even if you're a late back, so if you're a late backer and you're just checking out the game now, you can still get in. And now I believe I'll have to get confirmation on this. I don't believe you'll be able to get into first wave, but you may still be able to get in first wave. I'm not a confirm or deny that, but you will still be able to get in for those Kickstarter prices, which we all have already been told that was closed, that was all done, but they're going to offer it for one more weekend, that weekend, and then that should be it. And then after that, if you're still a late backer and you're not sure and you're getting into second wave, you're probably going to pay more. So, okay. So those are the big announcements. Um, Other information that I was going to provide as well is I was talking to Alex about Boss v Boss mode. If you are part of our Discord channel, you'll have seen I posted a couple pictures that he sent me of the Boss versus Boss mode. Maybe I'll just maybe I can see if I can tease it real quick for people that aren't in Discord. It may not work. Let's see. Did it work? No, wait. Hold on. There we go. Alright, so we're going back to general. We're going up. All of us having fun chatting in here. Come check it out. But these are the pictures that I got from Dragori. So the boss versus boss mode.
Cup's not included.
Here's the development. You'll see these cups here, which, this is all just prototyping, right? Was the different bosses, Lyric and Tyra, which we don't actually know exactly who that one on the left is, but we know who the one on the right is. And then you'll notice that there's 3 heroes on this side, and there's 2 minions. Those are the snipers, and then 3 heroes on this side. And so I asked Alex, wait, so you're saying this is and then this is the map itself. It's not great copy. We'll get something better eventually, but this is what the board is going to look like. And there's red portals and blue portals because it's for teams. So the idea is you can teleport, if you're the blue team, to either of these spots, but you can't be using the enemy teams. Anyway, so I asked Alex, I said, well, wait, so you're saying, is this a 3v3 mode? Because I don't think that was ever essentially stated. And he did say, yes, it is. It has a lot of a MOBA feeling. You're going to have 2 minions for each boss. And he says definitely going to be much different than PvP. He thinks it's going to be much more strategic than normal PvP elimination. There's no elimination in this mode. and but you're going to be trying to focus on getting these charges, so that way your boss can deal 70 damage to the enemy boss. So one thing I asked specifically was, and we've mentioned this here and there, is some heroes are better in PvE versus PvP. And I said, well, so do some heroes benefit more or less in this mode than normal PvP? And he did confirm that actually, yes, there are heroes that are going to do better. And this is probably related earlier, like when we talked with like Rokaru, where he can move people around. It looks like with this new mode that is potentially going to play in. So he said heroes that are better than others this mode, especially those who have effects that move enemies. So we created a hero tier for this mode, so you can choose 6 tiers. Some heroes have 1 to 2, have tier 1, 2, and 3. So maybe I'll get some more information out of them eventually, but it's kind of interesting that they are already anticipating that there's some heroes that are going to do better in this mode than others. So, all right, then, so that is that information. Let's see what else we got. What shot should I go to? Maybe I'll go back to the webcam shot. Let's see if we can look at this Elder Dragon a little bit here. All right. Look at the questions. Sorry, that's going back up a little bit. Wins the healer spotlight, and he'd see Jade and Ustar. Jade and Ustar, let's see. I think I was planning to do tanks next. I mean, I could potentially do the healer one next. I was just kind of going in this order across here. But, we can do them essentially whenever we want. So it'll probably be pretty soon, if not next week. And then, ever since starting D&D and also my students, this is something I can totally get into very easily. Yep, this is a great game if you're into those types of dungeon crawling type games. And then Code is passing out Discord links like they're candy. All right. All right, so I think that is pretty much everything I wanted to cover tonight. Is there any last thoughts that you had on the Tacticians tonight?
I definitely want to try the pirate next
Yeah,
time.
right?
And now that you kind of brought that to my attention, all that, I was like,
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, so I've looked at her abilities before, and I've thought, wow, some of them can be pretty good. Revenge of the Seas comes to mind often to me. But, or Tide of Blades, God dang, I did it again. Tide of Blood comes to mind relatively pretty easy. But Blackwater Taint is an easy one to forget, but can be a very powerful one to use appropriately. So, but like I said, I mean, Tacticians can be the hardest class to play effectively. We'll get more into the different classes in the future and how each of them are. I guess one last thing I should probably talk about is combinations. So we talked a little bit about last week. So brutes and tacticians. Uh, so we talk when I mention these combinations, I'm talking about them from the perspective of each of the classes that we're referring to. So last week we talked about the brutes. When you put a brute with a tactician, they're not very good, right? Because they don't get the benefit of their passive abilities. They often don't get very many benefits of being like right adjacent to their allies or anything like that. So it's not, not really that great for them. But now we're talking about the tacticians. Tacticians being next to brutes can actually be pretty good because they're another melee class, right? So they're more likely to trigger their tactics. And then also they can support their team a lot better because if you have, brutes, tanks, or bruisers that are in the, right in the thick of it with them, they're going to be able to support them better with like Tides of Blades, right? Moving people around and doing a lot of damage to their enemies, or being with exposed or whatever. So any of the melee type of classes they're really good with. So tanks, bruisers, and then brutes can be good, but like I said, it doesn't go both ways. Um, so classes, the thing is, healers are always good for everybody, right? I mean, I don't know if there's anybody I could ever say like, oh yeah, you definitely don't want a healer with that team, but there isn't really like the tacticians don't necessarily gain additional benefits to having a healer. They can work good in combination with them, but they don't necessarily gain additional advantage with them. So they're not necessarily needed as quite as much. Tanks are actually a really good combination just because they can help support back and forth where they're moving people around or they're providing additional benefits to the tacticians to help buffing them up while the tacticians can do some damage themselves. So tanks are definitely a very good class to go with. And then the bruisers as well can be really good. And, I mean, I could probably almost do 2 videos just on the bruisers because they're very unique in comparison to the other classes. But don't worry, I'll keep it down to one. um, anyway, so they're very good, but they're basically I judge them sometimes of their abilities, but more so with like their passives and how well their passives can work. So controllers they can work well with as well, but at the same time, controllers are like the ranged version of tactician. So in some ways, their abilities can overlap a little bit, but not always, and they can be a little bit different. So they can be pretty supportive as well when you have teams that are doing additional damage or preventing people from doing special attacks. You don't have to just rely only on the tacticians to do that. So they can be a good combination as well. Shooters, I'd say not very effective. Avalon, for example, Arcane Blast is a combatant 3x3 area. If your tactician is, let's say, Liana's right here, and let's say you got Juliet that's on your, no, maybe let's use Garion because we talked about this a little bit earlier.
Showing your table, by the way,
Oh,
on stream.
crap, sorry.
Just
Thanks for telling me.
I
Yeah.
tried messaging you that, but I didn't want to. You were in deep
Yeah,
talking, so
I get really into it and then I don't even see what I'm doing anymore. Okay. All right, so here's my example. Garen and Juliet, well, Juliet's not even a great example, but um, let's do what we had earlier. This kind of thing. And then Juliet's on the enemy team. So Garen and the Minotaur on the same team, Juliet and Jade are on the same team. So Garen's trying to go for a backstab here because Juliet is exposed. And then let's say you have Averlum as part of your team. He's trying to do Arcane Blast where he's going to hit, Arcane Blast. He's trying to hit both guys. It's a 3x3 area, so for him to do that, he'd have to place it here, which then means he's also going to hit Garen and the Minotaur, which is not preferable, right? So for him especially, it can be a little more challenging if you're trying to get those AoE shots off because you have too many guys just right in the thick of it, and you can't help but get the friendly fire in there. But it's not necessarily all bad either. I mean, you got Zanuck who can do massive single target damage. Neri who can do other damage without hurting your own allies. So it's not really all bad either. So tacticians, I mean, they're meant to be supportive, so they're not necessarily bad combinations. You know, they're supposed to do well with everybody. All right. I think that kind of covers everything about tacticians. Hopefully, there's not anything else that I'm obviously missing, but hope you guys enjoyed the video. And this one's a little bit longer than the last one, but whatever. My videos are always long, right? That's where Code's supposed to go. Yeah, but he's already fallen asleep.
No, I'm here. I had it on mute. I was like talking and it was all muted. So
Good job.
yeah, well, I can't win them all.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thanks guys for watching, and now have an Instagram. I got a Twitter. You can watch all my past videos on YouTube, and then of course watch all the live ones here on Twitch. So if you want to check that out, then just head on over to those areas. I have links pretty much all the different areas. Recently did a Facebook post with my channel links as well. So just like it and share it or whatever you want to do. I hope you enjoy it. All right, have a good night, everyone. See you later.
Peace.